Good afternoon. I'm Leon Davis, and this is Altitude Adjustment. Today I'm talking about U.S. immigration. America has labeled itself one of the greatest countries on earth, actually the greatest country on earth. And we've touted that all of the wonderful attributes of being an American, and we've encouraged immigration. So it's no wonder that people want to immigrate to America. So the real question is, how do we implement immigration? Now, the inscription on the Statue of Liberty, I'll read that for you really quick. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Immigration coming up.
Welcome to Altitude Adjustment.
Now, many of you may be familiar with the history of immigration in the United States, but I'll just go over a little bit of it, a little bit of history that I've come across in my research. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 of the Constitution expressly gives the United States Congress the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. The Naturalization Act of 1770 was the first enacted regarding immigration, and the original United States Naturalization Law of March 26, 1790 provided the first rules to be followed by the United States in the granting of national citizenship. The law limited naturalization to immigrants who were free white persons of good character. It thus excluded American Indians or Native Americans, indentured servants, slaves, free blacks, and later Asians, although free blacks were allowed citizenship at the state level in certain states. It also provided for citizenship for the children of U.S. citizens born abroad, stating that such children shall be considered as natural-born citizens, the only U.S. statute ever to use the term. It specified that the right of citizenship did not descend to persons whose fathers have never been residents in the United States. Now, the Constitution doesn't define natural-born citizen, neither does any current law, and no one has ever brought a court case to decisively settle the question as a matter of U.S. law. The law enabled those who had resided in the country for 2 years and had kept their current state of residence for a year to apply for citizenship. However, it restricted naturalization to free white persons of good moral character. The Naturalization Act of 1795 increased the residency requirement to 5 years residence and added a requirement to give a 3 years notice of intention to apply for citizenship. And the Naturalization Act of 1798 further increased the residency requirement to 14 years and required 5 years notice of intent to apply for citizenship. Now, the Act of 1790 was repealed by the Naturalization Act of 1795, which extended the residence requirement to 5 years, and by the Naturalization Act of 1798, which extended it to 14 years. The 1798 Act was repealed by the Naturalization Law of 1802. Major changes to the definition of citizenship were ratified in the 19th century following the American Civil War. The 14th Amendment in 1868 granted citizenship to people born within the United States and subject to its jurisdiction, but it excluded untaxed Native Americans and those living on reservations. The Naturalization Act of 1870 extended the naturalization laws to aliens of African nativity and to persons of African descent. In 1898, the Supreme Court decision in United States v. Wong Kim Ark granted citizenship to American-born child of Chinese parents who had a permanent domicile and residence in the United States and who were carrying on business in the United States. And were not employed in any diplomatic or official capacity under the Emperor of China. Now, all persons born in the United States since United States v. Wong Kim Ark have been granted citizenship, although the Supreme Court has never explicitly ruled on the matter of children born to parents who were not legal residents of the United States. Native Americans who were indigenous to this land were finally granted citizenship by the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, whether or not they belonged to a federally recognized tribe. The Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1952 prohibits racial and gender discrimination in naturalization. So all of this, most of this information was taken directly from Wikipedia. I verified it with a couple of sources to ensure that, or at least be more comfortable that the information being provided was I can have a little more trust into. I currently, and when I created the graphic talking about this episode, one of the questions I ask is the immigration system broken? And you hear a lot about that currently in discussions about immigration. And there are a couple of things wrong with that. First, immigration in this country has always been fluid. It's always been changing. There are many factions driving the immigration policy. And so for the system to be broken, there would have had to be a established system that's unchanging, unflinching, and then it was damaged in some way. So we know that that's not the case. Our immigration system can be changed on with an act of Congress, and we are still developing as a country about how we want to treat immigration. So it's not really a broken system, and those people using the term broken system are saying that they don't like the current system, and in order to demonize the current system, they have to call it broken. So it's an attempt to put the discussion more to their favor. So if the system is identified as broken, that means it needs to be fixed, and things need to necessarily change. And then they don't have the responsibility of necessarily identifying what's broken about it, but trying to put other people who defend the system on the defensive, saying, you've got a broken system, what are you going to do about it? And these are the changes that we need to make to the system. But immigration has, like all of the other national policies, is there to try to ensure civility, ensure orderliness, ensure consistency in how we function as a civilized society. The current occupant who is setting immigration policy is, pardon me, brings to mind to me, in the early 1900s, the United States foreign policy was isolationism. We did not want to get involved in other skirmishes outside of our hemisphere. And so we took the stance that if we bury our heads in the sand, if we don't get involved, if we don't engage, then we won't have to be brought into someone else's skirmish or someone else's problems. And World War I pretty much shattered that for most people. And the reason I say most people is because we still have many people pushing for isolationism not only in our immigration policy, but in our foreign policy. This isolationism is that, if we don't get involved, if we keep ourselves to ourselves, then the world will just leave us alone, and we will be able to exist and have a perfect and wonderful and beautiful utopia within our borders. And the problem with that, one of the problems, so we've have this wonderful system, and we tell the world at every chance we get how wonderful America is, and that we're the greatest, and that we have freedoms that you don't have, and the reason you're jealous or you're angry at us is because we have such great freedoms. When you do that, you've made yourself irresistible. You made yourself, so you're saying, yeah, you've got problems there, and you're struggling. You can, I'm gonna say you can come here, but you're making a utopia that everyone would like to have. So so people want to come here, and and we have a need, as evidenced by some of our immigration, like HB1 visas, and the term, I had a whole bunch of terms that I had to deal with when doing the research. But anyway, so we have migrant workers to come in and to do work, and we have need for that. So there's always the argument that we don't need migrant workers because we could take workers from other parts of the country and have them go and do the work that migrant workers do. And that's, I think, a part of this discussion. But the pushback on that is, if we could do that, how do we make that happen? Do we physically uproot people from where they are in Iowa and New Hampshire who aren't working and put them in an area where migrant workers are needed, or workers are needed to for crops and stuff? So how do you get those people to go do those jobs? So that being another significant discussion. But currently, migrant workers fill those positions, and our utopia gets to function, continue to function as we'd like for it to function. A lot of times, we want to close our eyes to how immigration helps us be better, how it helps us to make sure that we can go around the world and say we are the best, or we have such a great society, and we have such a place that you would want to be. So one of the issues that is talked about a lot, I think, in the current discussion about immigration, is we want to skills test people that come into the country. And so we put up this. So let me go back. So borders, countries, the way landmass is, there are some natural borders, like that rivers that run between countries, and or mountain ranges. And then so we have shorelines. So in order to, we have a lot of shoreline in this country, and there are a lot of open areas, land areas between us and our bordering countries that people can use to get to and from the United States. So the idea that we want to put up ways to keep people out. So there are so many different ways for them to get to our shores, to get into America. Plane, boat, train, car, walking, running, bicycles. Controlling your border is so in the discussion of immigration, you do want to address how people get into the country, because regardless of anything else, there's still the issue of resources. There are only so much resources that are available to care for the amount of people that come into the country or that are in the country. And that's a part of another issue also, because we use natural materials, raw materials, in our foreign in discussing or in implementing our foreign policy. So we use those, and it's important in how we feed and provide for people that are within our borders. The skills assessment to me comes across as pretty harsh, in that you are only valuable to us if you have a skill that is going to make us better. Of course, you want people to be able to be productive in your society, but if you're building your society on the backs of those immigrants, how do you feel comfortable addressing those immigrants, because they have contributed to the society. They've helped build it. So shouldn't they have more of a voice in it if that's what they're doing? And so not just coming into the country, but so if you're allowing them to come into the country and you're profiting from their work, what do you give them in return? Do they then should be able to have a voice in how immigration is handled, because they are helping build the society? There was a point, and I forgot to mark it on my list. Now I guess I'll have to come back to it. So one of the things about our current immigration policy is it can change, and every 4 years as the administration changes, and we've seen that significantly in what areas and aspects of our immigration policy become significant. How we treat other people. That's what I wanted to go back to. Just remembering. So people, so we have our neighbors, and so people try to get into the country. Now, what would cause someone to uproot their family, pull up stakes, everything that they've worked for and built for, and just move to another country? Yes, part of it is seeking a better life. But if you have a good job, if you have a stable environment where you are, what would cause you to leave? What would cause you to move? And so we're getting immigrants, and I'm speaking mostly about the border between Mexico and the United States. So we know that there are a lot of areas that have difficulty with cartels and gangs. And if part of securing our borders can be, and this is also encapsulated in our foreign policy, in helping areas where people are becoming refugees, we're leaving their environment and seeking a better life someplace else. If we're help to stabilize those, and that's, and as I said, it's a part of our foreign policy. Isolationism says we're not going to get involved. We're not going to get involved in helping to stabilize that community. We're not going to get involved in helping to protect that community or any of those things. And that only leaves if those communities have no way to get, or they have a more difficult way of stabilizing their own environment, they're going to, out of just pure self-protection, probably going to move. They're going to try to find some place to go that is going to help them to survive. Just surviving is a basic concept of any carbon-based life form. And so if we just, our only way of handling immigration is to build a wall or secure our borders with military, or just use isolationist tactics, we're going to always be constantly under some type of effort to beef that up. If more people were secure in where they were, it's less likely that we're going to have greater immigration. I'm not saying that we have to be the only country trying to help stabilize other countries, but our foreign policy, which impacts our immigration policy, if we work with with other partners, and that is what I think the lessons that were learned from, that some of us learned from World War I, is that, and that is why we have spread ourselves. Part of why we have spread ourselves out across the world is to try to help bring some level of stability to other environments, and that brings the more peace that is around the planet, the more peace each individual country on the planet has less turmoil, has less difficulty. Then we can have our immigration policy doesn't have to be then that so forcefully. We don't have to separate children to try to cause more fear. You've got people who are having a difficult time where they are. Pick up everything that they've got. Everything leaving, they probably have left quite a bit of stuff in an attempt to be safe and to be secure. I'm not absolutely comfortable with the idea that everyone taking the harsh road across difficult land, dealing with smugglers, is doing it just because they want free stuff, just because they want welfare or public assistance or medical services. People like to be around people that are like them. So picking up and going to some place where you don't know the language, where you're not versed always in the customs, does not seem like something a rational, just comfortably well-off individual is going to do. Of course, there are the adventurers, but there is a struggle in our society between two factions of immigration ideas. One is isolationism. We don't want anyone else. And then the other is a more compassionate, we recognize that people are in dire situations, and our shoulders are big enough to help carry that and continue to work towards building better communities where those people have come from. So the idea is there is a crisis immediately, and how do we handle the crisis? We could either slam the door shut in your face, or we can do the best that we can to help you, and then help you help yourself. And so I think that's where our immigration policy is at the time. And so I don't agree with the current isolationism. As we wall ourselves off from the world, we are walled off from the world. So at this time, America is doing great. We are a country that is economically profitable, militarily solid, and there is the assumption that we will always be that way. If we turn our back on the world today, can we expect them in times of crisis to stand with us? So we're talking about the wall. Pardon me. So we're talking about the wall. And it made me think of the Great Wall of China. Now, I realize that there may be a different reason why that wall was built, but when you wall yourself off, as I mentioned, when you wall yourself off, you walled yourself off. Oh man, I had it in my mind, and it just not that fast. Anyway, so that's what it was. A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from others' mistakes. Building that wall on our southern border, if we do that, we need to make sure that it is going to be a really interesting tourist attraction, because life changes constantly. What is going on today will be different than what is going on tomorrow. The wall that we build today may be useless come tomorrow. So I think building bridges, we always talk about, you hear that a lot. Building bridges is much better than building walls. Let's keep in mind that what we do to others, we may have to face one day. I'm going to close it off at that. I have, this has been an interesting show for me. I thought I had all of the, my material written down like I wanted, and I did not. And I have to, pardon me. Take a deep breath. But anyway, I'm going to review this one, and I may actually wind up redoing this show because I didn't feel like I really expressed everything that I wanted to express. But I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. And if you dare, you can replay the video podcast of this episode on YouTube. You can find it by searching Lions Den STL. Now, the audio podcast is available on Stitcher.com, Podcast.com, and the iTunes Store and the Google Music Play Store. The internet, of course, is powered by your likes, shares, and comments. Liking and sharing and commenting on this episode will be extremely helpful, and I'd appreciate that. And just do it because it matters. As always, remain calm, be cool, and above all, be careful. Look out for the other guy, because they may not be looking out for you.